know you like what you've seen so far. From engineering, to nursing, to business, to internships across the world, Southern University will help you reach your potential. My school offers a great education, encourages community service, and yes, it lets you have fun too. Call or visit our campus to discover all the great opportunities at Southern University.
I appreciate you all being able to turn up on such short notice. We're here today to discuss Southern University's effort to supply data requested by the NCAA that could have a bearing on our winter sports teams being eligible for postseason play. Southern University Athletics is presently under a postseason ban from winter championship tournament play, for all of our winter sports for championship tournaments, pending the submission of documentation of academic performance program data to the NCAA. Southern University has been working since the fall of 2013 in concert with the NCAA and university support staff to compile the requested documentation, which dates back to the 2009-2010 academic year. It's required recovering information from student athletes in some instances that date back as far as 2003. The NCAA gave us prescribed deadlines to provide the information, and to date we have met all of those deadlines, and we are reconciling any discrepancies with the subsequent reports that we are forwarding to them. There are more deadlines to be met. I just emerged from our club suite here, which is serving as a temporary work center for us, and we're continuing to work on those deadlines as well. In meeting those deadlines, during our conversation with the NCAA about meeting those deadlines, we were informed that the deadlines were set in such a fashion that if completed in the prescribed time, the bans on postseason competition could potentially be lifted before the start of the winter sports championship season, and we are working diligently with the NCAA in hopes of that happening. At this time, I'll entertain any questions that you might have.
Is it just winter sports that are affected, or are they just the ones that are most pressing?
Most pressing because of the time. The notification that we received is that it is a postseason ban for all sports, but the most imminent impact at this time is for our winter sports.
Could they apply anything retroactively, such as the football game?
We have not been notified of any intention on the NCAA's part to apply any of these penalties retroactively.
You said that some of this documentation goes back to 2009, 2010. Where did the discrepancy first begin? Like, how did it just overall start where you have to kind of catch up now?
Okay, so we initiated a review process called an annual review, which the NCAA converted to as opposed to the cycle recertification process, which had previously been used for approximately 15, almost 20 years. And so they went to an annual review process. Southern University was selected as an institution for an annual review. So the data in the cohorts that they wanted to review went back as far as 2009. So that review period was prescribed by the NCAA.
Just so we don't get it wrong, can you list the winter sports that you're referring to specifically?
Yes, we have 5. We have women's bowling, men's and women's indoor track, and men's and women's basketball.
How big of a blow, especially with the success of last postseason, men's basketball being, I guess, kind of the image that people think about when they think about that. How big is this, obviously, a year after to have this happen?
Well, it's a setback, of course, because everything that you engage in, whether you point to our competitive success, matriculation towards graduation, our reputation, not only of the athletic program but of the university, we want to continue to make strides and move forward in those regards. So obviously there was a great desire to build upon the successes of last year for that program. I can tell you as athletic director that my concern is ultimately for the successful matriculation towards graduation of our student athletes. That's my primary concern and directive. And so in as much as this creates what we hope will be a temporary setback for our student athletes in terms of how excited they were about these opportunities, the responsibility that I and the coaches and staff and the university has at this point is to continue supporting those athletes in all of their endeavors. So it hurts not only for men's basketball, but for all of our student athletes, and that's why I've been working with my staff and very closely with Chancellor Lorenz, and great coordinated support and effort from officials across the campus to meet these deadlines as quickly as possible.
Have these programs already been notified, and if so, do you have a gauge on the reaction?
It's a mix of resolve and disappointment. For one, it's incumbent upon me to convey to the coaches and for the coaches to convey to the student athletes that we are working in such a manner that if there's any way that we can get those bands released on the winter sports, and we are in fact eligible, then we need to continue competing in the regular season to put ourselves in the best position possible for those postseason opportunities. So yes, it's a temporary setback, and yes, there's some shock and some disappointment up front, but again, it's incumbent upon us to continue to encourage our student athletes, and for me and the athletic department staff to continue to encourage our coaches.
Is there a scenario where maybe one specific sport, but not all 5 are released of that, or is it kind of a bunch? How does that work?
The process as it's been articulated to us is once we submit the data in a fashion that is deemed usable and certifiable by the NCAA, that the postseason bans will be lifted all at one time. So as it has been articulated to us, there's not a scenario under which some sports may be released from the ban and others might not. We suspect we know how deep the iceberg goes. Obviously, the metaphor about some of that being on top of the water and the bulk of it being beneath. We have a sense of how great the amount of data is that we have to complete for the review. And when we responded initially to the NCAA when they outlined the deadlines, part of our response back to them was we had to be very honest with them and talk about whether or not we believed we'd be able to meet those deadlines. Getting data submitted in a timely fashion is one thing. Getting accurate data submitted is ultimately most important. And to date, we feel very confident about the data that we've been submitting and the deadlines that we've met thus far. So we'll continue working in that fashion. It's been some long days and long nights and long weeks, but we have to continue to remain committed and indefatigable in our efforts to support our student athletes. So we'll continue working no matter how long these deadlines take us to put ourselves in position to receive a favorable response.
When was Southern chosen for the annual review?
We were notified going into the academic year, this academic year of 13-14.
And why was Southern chosen?
That I can't answer. So far as I know, it is a random selection. I can't be certain of that. I do know that some institutions are participating in this annual review, some are not. I know of institutions participating in the review that are not HBCUs. I know of institutions participating that are not not low resource institutions. So it does appear to be somewhat random.
Is there a chance that the ban could be lifted for postseason for the basketball, for the conference tournament?
That's the goal we're working towards right now. If we can get the data submitted, meet the deadlines, and respond to any questions or concerns that they have, we're hoping to be able to call for the meeting that would be held, the specific NCAA subcommittee that would meet to make that decision. We will press to get this documentation to them in far enough advance of the conference tournament to receive that ruling. All we can control at this point is working furiously to finish the data and submit it. The decision that's made by that committee, the timing of that decision is is at this point out of our hands.
Did you get to talk to any of the student athletes affected?
Yes.
Just what was kind of your message? And I'm guessing just trying to reassure them that.
In situations like this, you know, a lot of times in intercollegiate athletics, when you hear about sanctions, postseason bans, et cetera, the headlines tend to be somewhat salacious. Recruiting irregularities, amateurism violations, pay for play, et cetera. And it's important to stress that that is not the reason that we are facing this postseason ban. It's equally important to me to stress to our coaches and to our student athletes that in so many instances they are not the culprits. This is not an indictment of our current student athletes or our current coaches. Our coaches have built into their recruiting procedures a very strong emphasis on recruiting very strong students as well as very capable athletes. And so their response to it collectively has been, I'm sure there's some shock and even some confusion because I can't imagine how upsetting it is for them. I can imagine how upsetting it is for me to believe that we're making progress and doing things the right way and then be met with this decision. And I think our coaches feel the same way, and student athletes, obviously.
How much lead time would the conference need to know that you either are or are not?
That I honestly can't answer. We've been in communication with the conference, excuse me, since the initial initial notification. We've continued to be in communication with them. We haven't been given a drop dead date at this time. Obviously, time is of the essence, and we'll continue to work to meet those deadlines to make that decision for them as favorable for us as possible.
Picking up on the question that you answered, I know that you guys as a group and a collective athletic department are doing all that you can to make sure that you have all deadlines being met and passed. What are the students doing on their side to make sure that this process goes on smoothly?
We had a very difficult but a very affirming conversation, in my opinion, for me anyhow, I can't speak for them, with our track teams this afternoon. And one of the things that we stressed to the student athletes was that in order to continue putting themselves in position to compete for championships down the line, what they do right now is paramount. You know, to say that we are looking back as far as 2009 and that having an impact on us now, what we stressed to them was the importance that, particularly for the ones in the room who are freshmen, who are sophomores, that their academic performance now will dictate their own futures. And in some senses, that is in their hands. There's so much that's happening right now that isn't in their control. And that's very unfortunate. But moving forward, this becomes more and more and more in their control. And that's what we're trying to stress to them right now, is that the future is in many senses in their and in our hands.
Has the NCAA provided any information in regards to what the process is?
Yes, once we compile all of the data, it's certified as accurate and correct, and we work with a separate set of consultants with the NCAA to make any corrections in any past APR or GSR, academic progress rate, or graduation success rate cohorts. Once we make all of those corrections, then a meeting is called with the Committee on Academic Performance. So the protocol is that we make the corrections, have the data certified, make the accurate corrections, then the meeting is called for with the Committee on Academic Performance.
How would this affect conference play?
Difficult to say. You know, you can't really project into the future, other than it could have an impact on which teams are invited. You know, that's not to say that this gives anyone necessarily an advantage. There have been years where the #1 seed coming out of the regular season loses in the first round. There have been years where the lowest seeded team in the tournament wins the tournament and goes on to the NCAA. So it's hard to predict how this might impact the conference in terms of who might eventually represent the conference in the NCAAs or who might win the tournament championship. the only thing that we are certain that this may bear an impact on in the future is which teams are invited to the conference championships.
You're always there for your team, and as a fan, you want your voice to be heard. The NCAA 6 Fan Sweepstakes is your chance to do just that. Get in the game at ncaa.com/6fan and lead your school to victory. Huddle up with fellow fans and spread the word, because the fan base with the most votes will be crowned champion on Selection Sunday as the NCAA 6th Fan. Go to ncaa.com/6fan and vote now, because your team can't win without its 6th fan.